Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and we're still in the month of Adar 1, where we are celebrating the weaver. And so today for our reading, I have 3 cards that represent a different spider, who are our most commonly known weavers in the land where I live anyway. We have other kinds of weavers as well, but here are 3 in 3 different decks, and we're going to give you an opportunity to choose one of the 3 spiders here today. We'll take a closer look at each of these spider cards, and then I'll put the timestamps down below, and you'll click on that timestamp. It'll bring you directly to your reading. And in those readings, we'll get more deeply into the different meanings of these spiders. And we'll do Hebrunes today. So for card number 1, we have this spider, spider number 43 from the Medicine Cards deck. For card number 2, we have the Yellow Garden Spider from the North American Animal Oracle. And for card number 3, we have this spider coming to you from the Animal Spirit Guide of the Wild Unknown. So take a moment to decide which of these cards, which of these spiders is drawing you into its web today. And I will put the timestamps down below, and I will see you in your individual readings. Welcome, card number 1. You've chosen the spider from the Medicine Cards deck. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see closer what our spider looks like, and I'll also pick that up and take a peek at it. This is showing up as card number 43 in the Medicine Cards deck. This spider is about weaving, as are so many spiders. This is what it says in the book about spider. Spider wove the web that brought humans the first picture of the alphabet. The letters were part of the angles of her web. So it was that Spider wove the first primordial alphabet, as she had woven the dream of the world that had become manifest. Spider's dream of the physical world had come to fruition millions of years before. So I love that this is about the weaving of the alphabet, or the aleph-bet as we call it in Hebrew, because this is the letters that we're going to be using to do our reading today. And spider's body is made up like the number 8, consisting of these lobes that are connected at the waist, and 8 legs as well. Spider is the symbol of the infinite possibility of creation. The 8 legs represent the 4 winds of change and the 4 directions on the medicine wheel. So I love this, that we have this spider here who's weaving, who's both said to have woven the world into existence as well as woven the alphabet so that people could communicate with each other into the future. And so today we're going to do a reading with our Hebrew alphabet. And I think today I'm going to do a scatter cast. So I'm just going to reach into the bowl, shuffle things up, and throw down some letters and see what kind of reading we have for what is it that you're weaving, or what web is showing up for you in your life, and how we'll get some readings with this alphabet. Okay, may have to back it out or change it a little bit. Let's take out all the ones that are face down today. And read what remains. Okay, so starting at the top of our reading, we have the letter Resh, and it's turned over on its head. It's interesting because the Resh is the first letter of the word Rosh, meaning head, and it's upside down here right at the top. And interestingly, the spider often sits with her head down in the web. I think that's really interesting to see that reflection here. Resh is the word that often means beginning, like in the first word of Torah, Bereshit, in the beginning. And so we have a beginning that's here at the top. It's tilted over on its head, but I'm seeing that in this case with the spider here, just being head down, being able to see in every direction. There is this idea of something new that is coming in with the Resh, but it's coming in from a new perspective, perhaps. Resh is the binary transformation of seed and barrenness. So some new seed is being planted here, and we're seeing it from a different perspective. I'm not sure how that plays out for you in this month of Adar 1 that we're in the midst of. We're in the midst of this full moon of Adar that's just passed by. On the next letter we have is the Zayin. The Zayin is the letter that represents a sword or a scepter, so some kind of power. And it's right here next to the spider, so some kind of intense power, sovereignty, being sovereign over your domain is represented here by the Zayin. And the Zayin is the number 7 in Gematria, and it represents that 7th day of creation. The 7th day of creation, which is the day of Shabbat, so the day of rest. And this spider is resting in the center of the web, waiting for the next thing, waiting for the prey to come in to the web, having woven together. The Zayin is representative of magic in its way of the completion of the 7th day of creation is a magical act, but also just the number 7 is sometimes considered a lucky number in several cultures. It represents the Shabbat bride, the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. And in some ways, that spider is that indwelling presence. She is the infinite, that number 8, the 8 legs and the shape of her body being the number 8, and also the one who wove creation into existence. I'm also noticing that at the top of our card we have a 43, and if you add 4 and 3 together, we get the number 7. So I love that, all of these things coming together here in the Zayin, with power, with sovereignty, with the Shekhinah, with the final day of creation and the ability to rest, which is a divine act. So that's beautiful. That's what's coming. That's above the line here. And also on the right here, we have the letter He. And the letter He is tilted slightly, but it is the number 5 in Gematria, so it represents the 5 fingers on the hand of humans. The spider has the 8 legs, but the He represents presence. It's the first letter of the word Hineni, which means here I am. And it's the answer that we give to the divine when we are called to service. Here I am, ready for service. It's representative of that presence again, that sitting, that waiting, that being available, just sitting waiting for the right time to move. And that's very, very spider-like. The letter He is also 2 of the 4 letters of the divine name Yud He Vav He, which means becoming. So that sitting in presence, that waiting, that being available for service, showing up is half of being ready for service. Showing up is half of the becoming. The availability is half of divinity here. He is representative of the month of Nisan, which is the first month of the year, which usually comes after Adar. But since we have 2 Adars this year, we have Adar 1 we're in now, and then Adar 2. So we have this pregnancy, this time of waiting, this time of preparing and staying ready and staying present in order to prepare for the new year coming in. So right at the top, we have the head of a new thing, personal sovereignty, the sovereignty of the divine, as well as presence. And then as we move below the line, on the far left, we have the letter Samech. And Samech is representative of, it's a circle, and you can see that it has a little vestigial thorn on it. It used to be a thorn in the Proto-Hebrew or the Paleo-Hebrew, and it means to be surrounded. It also is the foundation of agitation in the Sefer Yetzirah, because it has that thorny remnant to it. So something is maybe has some thorniness to it, some agitation and irritation to it. Again, since this is below the line on the card, I'm counting that as something that is maybe challenging, or maybe there's a fear here. Samekh is also the first letter of the word sovev, which means to be surrounded. So perhaps we're not feeling surrounded with protection right now. Perhaps we're feeling surrounded with stickiness, the web, and that agitation that comes with irritability. Below that, we have the letter tet. Tet is the letter that begins the word tov, which means goodness, and it's seen as a vessel or a cup. It could be a womb space. So something is gestating here. Something good is gestating, but it's below the line, so I'm guessing that there's a fear. There's a fear around the gestations, the fear around the waiting. We have this idea of waiting here with the hay above. And maybe there's a fear around what it is that is being birthed, whether it's going to be good. We're not sure right now because we can't see everything. We're not able to envision the entirety of a situation. So there's some concern around the goodness of a thing. There's some concern around the length of time it's taking to come about, whatever it is that we're waiting for, whatever it is we're trying to weave together. Down in the center here at the bottom, we have the Aleph, which is turned on its side. Aleph is the number 1, and it represents the mother letter of air, breath. It usually looks like this, but it's lying face down on its side here. So the Aleph is using air to create breath and the balance of above and below, as well as that connection to the oneness of the divine. Since it's turned on its side and the lowest letter on our reading, I'm guessing there's a bit of fear around connection to the one. Maybe there's a little difficulty with breath right now. Maybe we're having a hard time balancing divinity and humanity. That maybe there's an issue around coming to some sort of crossroads even. Maybe we've come to a crossroads and we don't know which direction to go. And so our Aleph is tilted and also very low on the reading. There's some fear. Maybe we're having a hard time managing our breath, being able to breathe into the situation. Over here on the right, we have the letter Pei, and the letter Pei is tipped all the way on its head. Pei is the creation element of speech. It's the mouth of the divine speaking creation into existence, completely turned over. But interesting thing about a spiral, it looks a little bit like a spiral, is even if you turn it over, it's still a spiral. So our Pei is this binary transformation of beauty and ugliness. And about speech, maybe we're having difficulty coming up with good speech right now, or we're a little afraid of being able to create with our words. We need to be able to use our words to create what we'd like to see in the world. We need to be able to speak with authority and listen as well, but speech is really heavily implicated in the Pei. Pei is also the number 80 in Gematria, so it relates to that infinity loop. That number 8, which is an infinity symbol, times 10. So there's something that's representative of infinity here, turned on its head below the line. So there's some fear maybe around the infinite, fear around the oneness of the divine, fear about spiders maybe, I don't know. Whatever it is, it needs to be righted. It needs to be righted by speaking blessings, to speak toward what you would like to see in the world rather than cursing what you don't like to see. We have this weaving that's happening here. This creator who has woven together multiple threads in order to create language, specifically the alphabet. So it's about writing, it's about speech, it's about using these letters toward goodness. And we have some concerns. We're not sure if we're connected with the divine. Maybe we're at a crossroads in whatever project we're working on, and we're not sure how that's going to play out. That we're having trouble catching our breath and using our breath for speech. That we're not sure whatever is gestating is going to turn out well, that it's going to have goodness, tov, within it. Maybe there's a little bit of a boundary issue. Samik is also about boundaries, about surrounding ourselves with protection, and that there's some agitation or irritation right now that we don't really know how things are going to turn out. And yet, if we move back above the line, we can still show up and say, here I am, ready for service to whatever it is I'm being called toward. That we can own our personal sovereignty, tap into the indwelling presence of the Creator, the Shekhinah, the one who dwells within. Find our own power here. Know that we are at the end of a thing, that this number 7 says creation is finished, and that it's time for us to rest and wait here. Wait for the call. That we have a new beginning coming, that it's coming from a different perspective than we expected, and that we can use our voice, we can use the letters, we can use maybe some journaling to come to a conclusion and understand what it is we're supposed to do next, and trust in the infinite, trust in those 8 directions, trust in the number 8, the infinite loop that is there inherently, sitting in the center, present, waiting, hanging upside down, giving us this different perspective. And when we do that, we'll find our way into the next thing. That we'll be able to add the 4 and 3 to get 7, to get the completion, to tap into that power, that divine sovereignty that is within us all the time, whether we see it or not. Knowing that even if creation and the idea of a spider creating the universe is a little bit frightening to some of us, that it's still divinity that weaves everything together. So for those of you who chose Spider from the Medicine Cards deck, this has been your reading for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time. Hello, card number 2. Those of you who chose the Yellow Garden Spider. And this is from the North American Animal Wisdom Oracle by Angela Raincatcher. You can see this beautiful spider, who is a earth element. And the Latin name I'm going to try to pronounce is Argiope aurantia, which I guess technically means gilded silver face, because it has a silverish face. And this spider, which is a typical garden spider, right, the yellow garden spider, is interesting because although it is an orb web weaver, it does this really interesting zigzag down the center of its web. Its web is like 2 feet across. It's really huge. And then it does this really interesting zigzag zipper-like thing down the center of the web. And some say that it's in order to prevent birds from flying through, or to maybe get other predators of the spider confused. They're harmless to humans for the most part. I mean, if you get bit by one, which they can bite, it's not any worse than, say, a bee sting, as long as you're not allergic. But they build these beautiful webs in these giant areas adjacent to sunny fields, where they're concealed and protected from the wind. And then they have this really interesting zigzag silk known as the stabilamentum in the center. And some say it's camouflage, and some say it's also to help them stabilize the construct of their web. And it's just a typical spider, but it's beautiful. It has these stripes on it that are black and yellow, and this gilded silver face. And this is our web weaver today. We're going to do a reading with the Hebrunes, and the way we're going to do this today is I'm going to stir them up in our bowl, and then I'm going to take a handful and cast them down on the web here, and see what readings come out for what you are weaving right now in this month, or what is it you're trying to catch, or maybe even try to avoid being caught in. Let's see what our letters have to say to us today. Okay, we're going to take out all the letters that ended up face down except for that one, and remove the ones that are here. And we've only ended up with a very few, which is completely fine. This is the message we're getting. So right on top of our spider, we have the letter Dalet. Dalet is the letter that represents a doorway. And it is the letter that represents a portal or some kind of transition from one thing to another. And this is really lovely for this, right on top of this spider here, because the spider is creating a web that stops things from going through a doorway. And on the other hand, it provides a portal for certain insects to the other realm through the portal of death. Sometimes the Dalet can be seen as a birth canal. And again, like death, birth is this mystery that we don't know what's happening until we go through it. For an infant inside the womb, it's impossible to know how it will be on the other side, and it may feel like a death to someone who's never known anything else. So the spider is here, and she's woven this web, and it has this really interesting zipper shape in it. And then there's a doorway that is opening into the next thing, whatever it might be. So maybe you're in a phase of your life where you're needing to pass through a doorway. Maybe you're afraid to go through that doorway because it feels a little uncertain. But its message here is go through the doorway. It's really important to step through. On the lower right here, we have the Ein Sof, which is the blank, that letter which is no letter. And it represents the beauty of the eternal, that which has come before all time, which is present now and will continue to be present after time has ceased to be. So it's got this, Ein Sof means without end. It's got this endlessness and this boundlessness, this idea of the deep, the unknown, the, again, primordial material, and maybe the substrate onto which all things are built. The Ein Sof, may seem like nothing is there, but in fact everything is there, like walking into a web. We don't know it's there sometimes and we get a face full of it, but everything is contained within the Ein Sof because it is the representation of that without end. Below that we have the letter He, and it's face down and it's way low in our reading. The letter He is the letter that begins the word Hineni, meaning here I am, available and ready for service to the divine. And because it's upside down, I'm going to say this is about, it's about a fear of showing up, that maybe we're afraid because of what we can't see, of stepping through that doorway, that we need to be prepared to do whatever it is that we're being asked to by the universe, even if it means walking into a spider web. But there's a fear here underlying all of this, that we haven't really made a decision maybe to show up, that we're being called to step through the doorway, but there's some hesitation, again, because the legs are in the air here and it is really low on our reading. That idea of presence, that idea of willingness and maybe even excitement about stepping through is a little bit suppressed here right now. And right now also right beneath this, and again both lower than and also kind of tucked underneath the He, we have the letter Yud. And the letter Yud is that one point, the seed of all things. So you'll notice that each of the letters have a little bit of a Yud in them. It's because that's the point from which all things are drawn. It's that one point into which the divine contracted themselves in order to create all of the universe. Maybe it's that spider sitting in the center of the web. The Yud is the first letter of the divine name, the Yud He Vav He. The Yud He Vav He, which means that which was, is, and will be. So this concept of a verb, of becoming, the verb to be, is the concept of divinity. How can we become? And this is very low on the reading, so maybe there's some concern again about planting a seed, about beginning a new thing. The Yud is the number 10 in Gematria, which so it speaks to oneness times 10, so an ultimate manifestation of oneness. And sometimes we can't see the strands. Sometimes, even though the web is very, very large, we can't see it unless we have that zigzag down the center. Our yellow garden spider here is saying, come forward, come through the doorway, step through into the other side, even though there's concern, even though you don't know what's happening, even though you might not want to show up yet. And even though that seed that's being expected to plant is maybe a little bit of concern right now. I'm going to grab a couple more Hebrunes, since we had so few, and toss them down and see what we have in addition to this. Okay, all of these are face down, so I'm going to say that is the totality of this reading. I don't know, I've never seen that happen before. So going back again, we have this yellow garden spider, the silver glowing faced spider, who builds this very, very, very large web that's very difficult to see. And down the center is this zipper shape that warns birds not to fly through, but also is encouraging insects to fly through. And we have a doorway, we have a gateway, a portal through which you're being asked to step at this time. And maybe you'll get a face full of web, and that's okay, because the divine is here in the infinite, even if we aren't sure what that means. The Dalet represents the foundation of wisdom and foolishness. So you have to discern what's wise and what's foolish. I just saw a post by the National Park Service that says sometimes it's good to use a stick when you're walking out into the forest to remove the webs as you walk through on the path. You may use your face. You get to decide which way you'd like to do it. But know that the garden spider is harmless to you. She's just out there looking for her next meal. And even though we've got the Ein Sof here, this unknown, this eternal, we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be afraid. We do need to step through the doorway. Even though it might feel like a death, it's also can be seen as a birth into the next thing. That if we've been called to show up, that we need to say Hineni, even if we're afraid, even if we're not feeling quite ready to step forward. And even if that seed that's being planted does not feel ready for us right now, that seed is the one point out of which all things grow. So we need to plant it. We need to allow it to burst forth and become something new. So for those of you who chose the yellow garden spider here today, this has been your reading. Step forward, step through the gate, step through that portal. Lean into the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 elements. Find your humbleness to step through the doorway. Choose wisely about how you decide to do that. And hopefully we'll see you on the other side. Hello, card number 3, those of you who chose this spider. Again, this spider is from the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Guide. And you can see that it has this symbol representative of the earth element at the top. And the web, I love that the web is a rainbow color here for this spider. I don't know specifically what kind of spider it is, but I'm going to read a little bit from the book to get some further insight into what is weaving together for you right now. Spider is the creator of prosperity through life's work, Dharma. The spider is an ingenious creator. Its greatest gift is weaving the thread of Dharma into a vast, intricate web that supports the spider and those around it, both financially and spiritually. It is hard work, but spider neither tires nor becomes impatient. This card reminds us creativity is everywhere. Be process-oriented rather than results-oriented, And soon your work becomes like weaving a magical, priceless tapestry. Abundance follows. When in balance, it is appreciative, enthusiastic, and prosperous. And when out of balance, discouraged, tired, and forlorn. To bring it into balance, use playful creativity. Spider. Okay, so we're going to add to this reading by taking a handful of our Hebrunes, stirring them up, casting them down, and seeing what else comes out for you. Okay. I'm going to remove the ones that are face down today. And let's see what else is left. So off to the side over here, we have the letter Nun is kind of face down. So Nun usually looks like this, and it is cast face down on the far left of our reading here. Nun is the letter that represents humility. It's said to be a kneeling person with their head slightly bowed. So there's some kind of humility that's necessary, and since this has fallen completely on its face, and it is actually a little lower than the center of the reading, I'm going to say there's some humility that's absolutely necessary for you to get through this time of weaving creatively whatever it is that you are needing to weave. That may be, again, it may be prosperity that's coming in, but you need to maintain your humility in order to achieve whatever it is that you are working so hard toward with your creative spirit. Next to that, we have the letter Mem, and the Mem is completely upside down. The Mem is the mother letter of water. And I think about that in terms of like those little dew droplets that end up on a web in the early morning. The mother letter of water also corresponds to a womb space, so some kind of uterus or gestation that may be happening right now, that there's creativity happening, but it's gestating and it's difficult to see. And since it's upside down in our reading, kind of low again, we're talking about a gestation that is happening, but there may be some concern about it. Is the thing that you're gestating taking a very long time? Can we see how it's going to turn out? No, we can't. So we just have to continue to do the work in order to wait out the gestation till we get to a place of birth. Below this, we have the letter Samech. The letter Samech is said to be a circle, a cycle, some kind of season, and also maybe being surrounded by protection, having good boundaries. It was turned over on the reading, so Samech corresponds to the foundation of agitation in the Sefer Yetzirah. So maybe there's something that's really irritating and agitating right now. Maybe somebody continues to break through your web as you continue to try to weave it. But you're surrounded here, and you need to understand that, even if there's a concern about it. That you are being surrounded in this beautiful web of life and by the divine who is protecting you with boundaries that are maybe even unseen right now. And the lowest thing on our reading right now today is the Zayin, and the Zayin was completely on its head. Zayin is the letter that represents a sword or a scepter. It is the number 7, so it represents luck. It's completely upside down, right down at the bottom of the reading. So there's some concern or maybe challenge with accepting your own sovereignty and power right now. This is the letter that corresponds to the Shabbat bride, the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. It's very, very low on the reading. So I would say that it being upside down and down so low, that maybe it's, again, having difficulty knowing that you are surrounded with love, knowing that the divine has got your back, that your personal sovereignty is in question. And if that's the case, you need to bring yourself back up here to setting good boundaries, to knowing the gestation is happening even though it's challenging, and to find your humility in the situation, whatever it might be. The spider is weaving prosperity for you, but it's difficult to see right now. I'm going to take another handful and toss them down and see if we get any new letters today. Okay, bunches of them. pop the face down ones out of the way. And what have we got left? We have, well, start where we stopped. We got the letter Kuf sitting on top of the Zayin. Kuf is the letter that represents sacredness, kadosh, and also Kof, which means monkey. So it's on its back, it's lying on top of the sovereignty. So there's some challenge, I think, having to do with finding the balance between what is sacred and what is animalistic in nature. Your physical needs, maybe your physical desires, and the sacredness of the situation. Sometimes when we see a spider, what do we want to do? Some people want to just squish it, kill it. But everything is sacred here. All animals are sacred, including the spider. And maybe particularly the spider because it does weave this amazing web. And it can offer prosperity. In some cultures, the spider represents prosperity. So there's a challenge with our own sovereignty having to do with this sacredness, knowing that you are sacred, knowing that you are also an animal that has sacredness within it. Over here to the right, we have the letter Pe. The letter Pe represents the mouth of the divine, speaking creation into existence. So as we're speaking about creative play here, speaking what you would like to see in the world, verbally, out loud, or in your journal, will help bring it about. It's a way to manifest things. The divine gave us the power of speech and used the power of speech to create the world. So use your voice wisely. The Pe represents the binary transformation of beauty and ugliness. So use your words in a beautiful way. Rather than cursing what you don't want to see in the world, bless what you would like to see in the world. And this is below the line again, so I'm going to say there's been a challenge with that. There's been a challenge with being able to speak clearly and articulately what you would like to see in the world. Above this, we have the letter Tav. Tav is the letter that is the final letter of the alphabet. It represents a sign, a symbol, a seal, a signature, something that has come to an end or is about to come to an end, maybe a final judgment about something. That maybe we're having some, again, challenges. This was tilted and it's below the line in the center as well. That something has come to an end or is about to come to an end, and judgment needs to be pronounced. But there's a ending, there's a signature, there's a stamp and a seal. Something that the divine has brought to its finality is here. Maybe this web is about to come into completion, and when it does, we'll get the next thing, which up here at the top, the highest, the only one that's above the center of the reading, is the letter Vav. And Vav is all about connection. It's literally the word and in Hebrew. It's about planting oneself firmly in the earth and reaching up toward heaven with our hearts, with our minds, really connecting with ourselves, really connecting with the divine. So connection is the thing that will help us most in this situation. And, of the things that connect, the spider connects all of these threads to each other in order to weave what needs to be woven. Connection is essential. This month is all about connection. It's all about weaving together the sun and the moon to make the calendar work. It's all about connecting one thing to another. And it is face down above, so I'm going to say that this is about connecting really with your inner self, maybe with your inner idea of the divine. Maybe figuring out how to reconcile this holiness and this animal nature, yourself with the earth, because we have the earth symbol here. So looking at this whole thing all together with the spider, it's supposed to bring you wealth and prosperity perhaps. We need to remain humble. That if we're having difficulty with that gestation time, remember to stay humble. That we are surrounded with protection even if it's difficult to see, and that there may be some agitation around that. We may have difficulty owning our own sovereignty and really accepting that the divine is here with us. Maybe we're having difficulty time with resting. The Zayin represents the seventh day of creation, which is Shabbat. So maybe we're having difficulty with that, taking the time to rest that we need in order to find our energy and our sovereignty to take hold of that separate scepter and become the sovereign of our own lives. That our issue with balancing holiness with the mundane, balancing holiness with the animal nature within ourselves, may be at task here. That we need to speak into existence what we'd like to see in the world using blessing rather than curses. That we should understand that we have that power and really hold on to it and use it for good. Something is coming to an end. Something is about to finish and be signed and stamped and sealed. This web, maybe, that we have been weaving is about to come to an end, and it's time to stand back from it and say, this is good. This also represents the moon in the sky, or rules over the moon in the sky. So maybe it just has to do with the full moon here. Or maybe by the next new moon we'll have figured this out. And the outcome here, and the thing that will help us most, is to connect with our inner selves, to connect with our inner concept of the divinity. It's interesting that we have Zayin down below and Vav up above. Zayin being the seventh day of creation and the indwelling presence of the Shabbat bride, and Vav being about connection and the sixth day of creation, which is about really creation of the humans and the animals. And it's face down, it's here saying we need to connect with our inner self to really quite understand how we are manifesting in the world. And that will help us the most when all these challenges have come up. And eventually we will have woven together what we need to weave in order to claim our prosperity, to claim our sovereignty in the situation. So for those of you who chose the spider from the spirit animal, this has been your reading today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I'll look forward to seeing you here next time.